Welcome to the Gifted Neurodivergent Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the exploration and cultivation of the outside genius found in neurodivergence.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Gifted Neurodivergent Child Podcast. I'm Lillian Skinner. Today we're going to talk about a topic that could revolutionize the way we see education and human potential. I have identified a new but likely familiar type of cognition. One that challenges our traditional understanding of intelligence and learning that involves our emotions. This new cognition is called infracognition, and it is the body's mirror of our metacognition. Metacognition is our thinking about thinking, and infracognition is thinking about feeling. If you would like to know more, I have some white papers on my website. You're welcome to read. It also describes how intelligence works in conjunction with metacognition, and it drives the savant giftedness, profound giftedness, and genius ability to see the world in ways others don't or can't. When I was growing up, it was told that I wasn't allowed to have this intelligence because they wanted us to regurgitate their facts. But with AI, that's going to turn around. AI has all that cognitive information, and your ability to regurgitate it isn't of much value. Now, it's the information that you take in from the world around you that you can use in conjunction with the AI cognitive data, or to find new ways of seeing it, or to find ways of proving that the cognitive or established fact is wrong. That's my biggest focus that I have been using AI for, to show how what we view as good mental health, what we view as learning and education is wrong. That what we had was serving of the system, but not of the individual. In order for us to adapt to the change that is coming, because there is change coming on every single front, we need to understand what our sensing intelligence is telling us. Infracognition is the summing up or the aggregation of all of our body's sensory data, our past memory patterns of recognition that we have in our subconscious. It's subconscious data that somehow makes it up to our cognitive. For some of us, that's a lot. For the genius, it's an incredible amount. Ever since I was a kid, when I've learned new information, my body has filtered it and said yes or no. I have been told a lot of information in my lifetime where I have sat there and said, these are lies, and I don't trust this person. I knew this at the body level, not necessarily the mind level. So it was precognitive, and I felt very sure of it. I could use my body and emotions to figure out why it wasn't right. With AI now, that is so very easy. We have been programmed out of infracognition. Most people use only their cognitive. They don't know who is lying to them. They trust people, even though their body is probably saying, no, don't trust this person, because we have been forced to move within a system that is a captivity situation. We can't really use our sensing data or infracognition to understand the situation because we really don't have a choice. But there's ways we can navigate it by understanding what our infracognition is and using that data to be our most discerning and most intelligent sum with it as a part of present and future. We are facing a paradigm shift in how we would see intelligence. I am part of that paradigm shift. For most of my life, I was denied my intelligence. Now I am being seen for it. That only makes me realize what a scam our education system is. They were educating a certain type of intelligence, educating those who could be easily used as tools. One of the things I want you to understand as a parent is how they do that, what that looks like in the school systems, what a child with high metacognition is experiencing versus a child with high infracognition. I know this because I come from a family of savants, and this is how we learn. This is how we filter the world and understand it so complexly. The reason we do not savant and genius and destroy prodigy is our school systems actively work against the intelligence of those of us who have high sensing data that we can transfer up to cognitive knowledge. It breaks the connection between our cognitions. It breaks the ability for us to bidirectionally learn, which is the driver of genius. I had a paper on Substack showing how Einstein learned bidirectionally, and that is why he was so far ahead of his peers. It takes bidirectional learning and in both somatic and cognitive to be exceptional. The only people who maintain this in our school systems are the people who are twice exceptional, twice gifted. They keep the toddler ability to learn at the somatic and cognitive levels, transfer this information between our two different intelligences, I go back and forth between my metacognition and my infracognition all the time. I use them both to navigate the world so that both of my cognitions are up and running, talking, being mindful. This is true mindfulness. It's not that clear, peaceful feeling. Mindfulness is using both of your intelligences. You will want to be aware and using your sensing data inputs in real time. I'll give you an example of infracognition coming up that everybody has experienced. Deja vu. You've all had deja vu. I'm very sure of it. Deja vu is pretty clear for me. When I have deja vu, this is familiar. What is familiar about it? I can go back and forth between my metacognition and my infracognition, and it will tell me when I experienced it be. Not every single time, but it will take me back to the memory where it occurred. Sometimes it's a bunch of memories that occurred. There's something that I notice a pattern, and deja vu says this has happened before. It's trying to let you know of a pattern that is not yet at that full cognition state. It's at a precognition state. It's saying, I'm going to bring attention to this because this is a part of a pattern that we've experienced before. It's just part of pattern recognition. All of this is logical. It's a part of our way of being in the world that's trying to protect us, that's trying to make sure that we know where we're going. Think of it as being in the woods. You're going to remember certain things about the woods, but the woods, for the most part, looks pretty much the same. So when something's off, you're going to be like, oh, I have deja vu about this space. I have turned here before, and this is the way to get back home. We have lost all of these abilities on how we navigate new spaces because we've been forced into the same spaces over and over, and we're waiting on other people to show. That works in captivity. That is going to go away. With all the change coming, we are now going to have to trust ourselves, enter new spaces, even if they were once familiar because of change coming so rapidly. We're going to have to be more aware of our surroundings, more aware of the world around us, because we are going to have to go back to being more aware of everything. We are now switching to a new paradigm of intelligence where it will be about you navigating great change. We've been a society focused on details and small picture, and we are shifting to a society focused on big picture because AI will offer us the small details. We can pull down this data and see it quite quickly, notice our patterns. As long as we all have access to it, it won't be a big deal. We are going to need to use AI as a tool for reference, but we can't trust a lot of the data in it because the data in it is not accurate. A lot of the data is based on the old world, the world that we held things stable. There'll be this period of time where we can pull AI to see the difference and create our own new knowledge to make a living, to make ourselves experts again. We're switching from the people who were usable by those in the system to the people who are the frontiersmen, the people who are the new navigators, the ones who can figure stuff out. We're moving from valuing essentially autism, which is giftedness and cognition, to valuing ADHD and those of us who have twice exceptionalism, which is giftedness and autism and ADHD. I say giftedness because the DI's ability is the system as it is. Our systems don't teach you how to be healthy or use your full intelligence. They tell you that there's something wrong with you because your intelligence doesn't work for the system. But your intelligence has always worked for you. I had to figure out how my intelligence is different to make my own way. We are all about to have to make our own way. And so this has given me an advantage as we switch over. For other people, it will be a disadvantage. Right now, what we need to do, though, is fully understand the types of intelligence that we have been denied with our system. We all have infracognition. We just have to now recognize it, understand it, and learn how to use it. Most of us don't know how to use it. Most of us have been programmed out of it. I spent most of my life trying to figure out why people couldn't see how I figured things out, only to realize that they have been conditioned out of it and I hadn't. I realized part of the reason I hadn't is trauma. Our infracognition grows during trauma. It grows and helps us realize the full big picture of our trauma so we can heal. That is stymied, that is stopped in our systems. So we are going to need massive change in our education and mental health because we traumatize children in our education, and then we do not give them the proper mental health to heal from that. We need to change everything because the way those two work, they do not respect the natural process for how humans move through the world. Since we are going to be all experiencing more trauma, more change, more growth, we are going to need to find and use our natural way of being. You can see the change is already here in our weather. It's going to keep increasing, and we need to get in front of that. The change is also here in our economy. So ecology and economy, the change is here. They're both going to be changing incredibly fast, and we need to learn to use our infracognition with AI to be able to survive what's coming, get in front of that. I'm going to give you two children who are the example of the old system's ideal versus the new system's ideal. These two children are in our current system. Let's meet Emily and Alex as the examples. They're both 12 years old. Right now, by putting your children into the U.S. public school system, this is their experience. Let's start with 12-year-old Emily. Emily is the ideal student. She fits perfectly into our current educational system. She's organized, punctual, and thrives on structure. In class, Emily sits quietly. She takes detailed notes. She raises her hand for questions. She does her assignments on time. She's neatly presented. She's thoroughly researched. She excels in the testing and receives consistent praise from her teachers. Her strengths are her linear thinking, her analytical tasks. She's excellent at following directions. She's excellent at memorizing information. She applies learning concepts in a straightforward manner. She plans her study schedule in advance, and she is seldom overwhelmed by the workload. However, she does struggle with open-ended tasks or when they have to do creative work in class. She doesn't like to do unconventional thinking. She gets anxious when faced with ambiguity and when she has to do any risk-taking. She excels in the structured environment, but she's going to find it challenging as we move into different ways of thinking. Now let's focus on Alex. Alex has a very different experience at school from Emily. Alex is a highly creative, intuitive, very empathic, and kind child. But none of these strengths matter in our school systems. What they focus on is how he struggles to sit still in a class for so long. During the day, Alex fidgets, doodles, and daydreams. He reads books under his desk. He's constantly working very hard not to be distracted. Sometimes he's looking at the teacher, sometimes he's not. When he is engaged, he tends to ask too many questions and talk too much. He likes to visualize concepts. He likes to process information in his own way. In terms of academic performance, Alex is inconsistent. He has to really like the subject or he can't focus on it. He demonstrates insight and creativity that's beyond grade level, but he can't reflect that enough to have it show up in his grades. Alex struggles with rote memorization, repetitive practices. He sometimes falls behind in these areas. He understands and retains information best when he's making or doing or creating something that physically links him or applies it to the real-world application. He has a talent for seeing patterns and connections between seemingly related ideas. He's very sensitive in his environment, class noise, and social dynamics. He worries about everyone else. His sensitivity gives him an acute awareness of everyone else's emotions and deep capacity for empathy. Alex thrives in any hands-on experience. Alex has a very different experience at school than Emily. That was the experience of those two children from the teacher's perspective or from a metacognitive's perspective, the perspective of just thinking about it, not understanding the child and how they're feeling, but what they actually perceived from the outside. That is what the metacognition perspective offers. That is the behaviorism perspective. That is the perspective that our world takes when educating children. Now let's do this from a different perspective. Let's do this from the infracognitive perspective and evaluate Emily and Alex and their environment from the thinking about feeling perspective. Emily enjoys school. She feels comfortable in the structured environment of school and society. She likes following their schedules and rules. She comprehends her teacher's expectations easily and can meet them without significant effort. She enjoys the methodical approach her studies requires, as well as creating detailed plans to follow and complete them. Emily's typically focused and in her head. She enjoys analyzing her own thoughts, planning actions, evaluating their outcomes. The highly restricted environment of education is comfortable for Emily. Emily conforms not because she's more intelligent, but rather because she's less aware of her surroundings than someone like Alex. She does not have a big picture perspective that shows her what's going on around her. She's able to filter that out quite easily. Emily enjoys school and trusts the system and its efforts to cultivate her. In the same environment, this could not have a more different experience. Alex, though born into the same structured society and possibly even the same family as Emily, feels consistently at odds with his environment. Alex is aware of all the restriction on his body. He's aware he can't get up for water when he's thirsty. He can't go to the bathroom without asking, and it doesn't guarantee he'll be able to go. He knows it irritates the teacher if he asks too much, and that reduces his chances of going. He may not get up and change seats. He may not move around the classroom. He's aware of all of the limitations of the classroom. He's aware of exactly how understimulating one thing is and overstimulating another thing is at the very same moment. He notices all the smells, noises, things moving in his sensitive peripheral vision, chairs and desks shifting, and children from other classrooms walking by in the hallway. His attention is constantly being drawn to the windows, to the outside, because that is where he'd rather be. He intuitively senses the limitations of his surroundings, the confinement of the rules, and the physical making him feel restless and confined. He learns best through hands-on exploration and creative projects, but this is rarely an option, so he's forced to sit through long, drawn-out traditional lectures on topics he could comprehend easily if he was able to read it on his own, at his own speed, which is much faster than the classes. Alex does not understand that he is a Systems 1 thinker, and everything in our system is set up to serve System 2 thinkers like Emily. But he knows that everything is set up to work against him in this environment, to exhaust him, to confuse him, to make him feel stupid. Sometimes, though, he's sure he's not stupid. He's highly attuned to the emotions and social dynamics. He picks up on the subtleties that others miss. He correctly answers questions the rest of the class is stumped by. His thinking includes his emotions. His emotions and intellect are often engaged in dialogue, telling him what he needs to do to behave, despite the exhaustion of keeping up the pretenses that this has been any value to his learning. Alex knows how to process information. It's just different. He may not be aware that it's through his body, emotions, and integrating sensory inputs with intuitive understanding that he has mapped his entire school and each person he encounters within it. What is very clear is that his environment is not set up to educate the way he learns. His needs to learn are not valued, respected, or understood. But when he asks for them to be met, he is punished or shamed. It's clear to Alex none of his abilities, such as his ability to adapt and process quickly, his amazing creative problem solving, his ability to come up with novel solutions matter because they do not fit into the rubric because they are not valued in our work world. Every day Alex enters schools, he enters an environment that is toxic. No matter how hard he works, no matter how much he studies on his own and does what his teachers and his parents ask him to do, he knows that even if he achieves success, the cost will be very high to him. Alex has the mental model ability to know what his resources and limitations are, and his body will calculate his chances of succeeding and what the costs were. He knows that the cost will be very high to his physical health, to his happiness, to his lifetime achievement. Alex is brilliant. Alex may even be a genius, but because he is the wrong kind of intelligence, he is exhausted and destroyed in our school system because he is their wrong kind of intelligence, because his kind of intelligence thinks for itself. It is a full, complete, mindful intelligence, and they don't want every day child is able to have any emotional stability, and self-containment is nothing short of a wonder. Every day this child is being taught academically, intellectually, that they are not enough. Every day they're being told they are not smart. Emotions are going to come up and try to let know the opposite. It's extraordinarily exhausting for someone, big picture thinker, who's a top-down thinker, someone who can see shortcuts in everything they do. The system is meant to break us. It is not meant to educate children. It is out to destroy them. That was the purpose of John Locke's work. It was to destroy the Enlightenment era thinkers. We know other cognitions exist. The fact that other cognition is undisputed. We know there's other intelligence. Why are we only operating in the single cognitive? We are at a very interesting time because AI is forcing us to now care for the big picture intelligence. At the same time, it is filling the need for small picture intelligence. What is going to happen is that our systems are used to us being enslaved cognitively. It's going to cost us dearly great change. And AI will be interesting because it's going to what they have done. It has already done that. I am already using it to show. I have papers out there showing how the focus on metacognition, on Locke, Russian education system, enslavement, your cognitive, and it's disregarding your emotional intelligence. It's disregarding your body wisdom. And that disregard causes mental illness. I'm putting these papers out because this is what our systems do. They enslave children at a time when we need them to be fully aware, to be fully intelligent, to survive the change coming. They will not be able to survive the change coming without using their full intelligence because the change is going to be that fast. Whether you identify with Emily or Alex, this education system is costing everyone much. Not only are we losing our creativity at a time we need it more than ever, we have a disconnect from our natural instincts and body. We have anxiety and stress from being in captivity, and it burns us out cognitively, and we're not sharing the load between our intelligence. It does not reflect the new world changes with ecology and AI. It is a loss of cognitive flexibility because it puts us into this one style and our brain locks down in that, and we cannot switch back. We lose our genius, we lose our savants. This is incredible real loss to the group as a whole, so a few people could benefit. Emily is going to struggle the most in adulthood. Emily is going to be lost because everything has changed and she can't change with it. Alex is going to struggle unless he gets the right place that allows him the freedom to figure out how he. That is what's driving me to create a nonprofit I created. I build this for my own children because I cannot see doing everything I could to foster healthy children only to send them into the workforce, which is so profoundly unhealthy. Our emotions aren't a crux. They are a warning. They're saying our systems are broken and dysfunctional, and we need to create new ones. Our children's creativity, intuitive understanding is their greatest asset in the next era, and they destroy that every day send them to school. They're frustrated, tortured in schools. The more intelligent you are, the more destructive the school system. Era, we need to change everything. I want the best for my children. I hope you want the best for yours. I hope we can set them free from the emotional, mental, physical struggles that they have being sensitive in a world that is attacking them, denying them their reality. It is not their fault that they are different. Set up to alienate these brilliant children. I know the teachers change. I don't know that how much change we need, but change will be good for them because we still need teachers. I am still seeking teachers to teach subjects, to help these kids understand, to monitor their projects. But we don't actually need them to be on the teacher schedule. I am seeking the opposite. I am seeking children who guide the learning and teachers who are willing to respond to that. We're looking at this backwards. Children learn naturally. We have stripped them of that. Now we need to bring it back because the change coming will be so great that only those of us who have maintained our infracognition and metacognition connection, which we all have when we're born, will be able to see what to do and how to react. The rest will be pawns in a horrible game. That is it for my podcast. I hope this was valuable. I really do. I have been really struggling with this one. It's been a hard one for me to put out, but I hope this was valuable. I am going to have to reduce how much podcasting I'm doing because I'm getting too busy. But I am going to be putting out more papers and more things on the facing as we move forward, putting things more behind paywalls as I move forward because it's just a necessity for me to keep going. I appreciate you listening. Take care, everyone.
The views, information, and opinions expressed on this podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent Gifted ND Incorporated, Lillian Skinner, or the Gifted Neurodivergent Podcast. This podcast, Lillian Skinner, and Gifted ND Incorporated are not responsible and do not verify the accuracy of the information contained in this podcast series. The primary purpose of this podcast is to inform and educate. The Gifted Neurodivergent Podcast is only available for private, non-commercial use. Any other use of the information contained within this podcast must be done with express written approval and knowledge of Lillian Skinner. You may not edit, modify, or redistribute any part of this podcast. The developer assumes no liability for this podcast or its use on any other podcast or other media.